got a plan.
Why put him in such a spot that he has to worry about what's,
I'm not,
whether he's going to happen?
listen, right now, I think it's gone. To be honest with you, my personal feeling is that if nothing is done, Medicare is gone. So I am here to try to solve that problem. What worries me is if it's gone.
Raise taxes.
And, well, I think we can raise revenue. I think we can raise more. We have more revenue to the Treasury when we reduce that unemployment rate from 9.1 down to 4%, right?
Yeah.
If more people get back to work, more revenue comes to the Treasury.
This
I would
gentleman
rather
said,
run.
why are oil companies getting subsidies? Do you, as our congressman, believe that the oil companies should continue
What
to
I've
get
said
subsidies?
is we should get rid of the subsidy. We also should get rid of what we request them to pay to us in leases. Get rid of both. Get rid of both.
What? It's our
Why
property.
do we give our oil?
Oil to private corporations. It's my oil.
Yeah.
I'd like to get back to the private taxes just for a moment.
Okay.
All over Europe, in the European Commonwealth, they have what they call a VAT tax,
Yeah.
value-added tax, which is a national sales tax. It's right now running 21.5%. They still have $9 and $10 gasoline and all these other taxes. My question is, do you or anybody have ever figured out if we went to a flat tax, what the rate would have to be? I mean, is it going to be 40 or 50%?
No,
Well, you know, I'm looking at.
the answer is there's lots of different studies and about where the rate would have to be. And this is probably the one reason that it hasn't been instituted yet, because nobody wants to make a mistake in putting it in, missing the number, and then having to dramatically increase it. So the thought would be somewhere in that 20% range. Could be 16, could be 20. But
The reason I asked that question, the 21% is not cutting it in Europe,
right.
you know, so I'm assuming it would have to.
There's also a lot of different, I mean, there's vast differences between European style government and our government too that contribute to
It's
this.
getting less and less every day.
I know I've got to get over to the police station shortly, so let me just take one final question, if I could, and then I can wrap up.
If I could just comment, nobody has commented, I think, on the entire issue of the debt ceiling and the raising of it, which looks to me as if it became a complete political football, a game that was played in Washington with all of our investments and all of that uncertainty that you always talk about not wanting to initiate, you initiated. And I listened to the Standard & Poor's people saying that one of the reasons they downgraded us was that there was all this uncertainty about whether the debt ceiling, raising of the debt ceiling was once again going to become a political football, and also that the current Congress is so unwilling to raise revenues, however they may be raised, whether it's by lifting oil subsidies or closing corporate loopholes or having companies like GE pay their taxes. Like I do and like probably everybody in here does, and why should they get off? And I just think that going after the debt, taking the debt limit and making it, politicizing it when it can endanger the entire economy was reckless to the extreme. And you just don't endanger the livelihoods and the investments and security, economic security of millions of Americans.
May I ask you a question? Would you have preferred that we just have a clean debt ceiling raise?
Absolutely, just the way it was under President Bush and previous presidents, including President Reagan.
Here's what I would say to answer your question, and let me make a couple of closing remarks. And then, unfortunately, I've got to scoot because I've got a hard deadline to be at the police station. The debt ceiling has always been raised, no questions asked. You're correct. Ever since its inception.
We owe that money. We already spent it.
What was said earlier this year, when the administration asked for a debt ceiling increase, John Boehner, actually, as Speaker of the House, has been very consistent. He said, we will only raise the debt ceiling if we get systemic change in our spending habits in this country. He never said we're not going to raise it. he's always been very consistent about this, and the reason.
No, he
well,
played brinksmanship there.
Okay, well, that's a
I don't
matter
think
of,
there's
that's a
anyone
matter
in
of
this room who
opinion,
doesn't.
but he was always consistent in what he, in his public statements, that in order to raise the debt ceiling, we should change the fundamental spending in this country. Standard & Poor's cited two things: the inability of both sides to find common ground, but also, and just as equally, if not more importantly, the spending level. Now, I met with these rating agencies as your member of Congress. They have a fundamental problem with this, with the debt ratio to GDP. They have a fundamental problem with it, and what they're citing is not necessarily the ratio today, but their expectation that the ratio is going to increase.
They cited lack of revenues also.
Well, yeah, I'll tell you, as a mayor,
Yes.
I've stood in front of, I've argued in front of rating agencies. They'd love to see tax hikes. They would like to see anything that proves, without a shadow of a doubt, that you are going to pay your debt. And if that means raising tax rates, they are okay with that.
I didn't say that, I said revenues, like the oil subsidies.
I'm just telling you
that
my
lady
experience
mentioned.
I'm telling you my experience as a mayor.
Right.
But what they also needed is 4 trillion, what they were looking for is trillions. They're looking for trillions. They're not looking for billions, they're looking for trillions. I would argue from an economic standpoint that their criteria to not raise the, to lose the credit rating doesn't necessarily match up with what's good for an economy. There are differences. Economically, there are certain things we need to do, and with these rating agencies, there are certain things we need to do. So, moving forward, here's how I think we need to conduct ourselves. Ways and Means will bring a package forward that has bipartisan support for increasing revenue. I got to tell you, that was passed in the budget that got a lot of criticism from people in this country, but it shows that it's in our budget that we should be raising revenues, but not through raising tax rates. I want to be clear about that. But it is through eliminating loopholes. We focus on that. We continue to address tax reform and the entitlement reform. We can set ourselves on a path of fiscal solvency and fiscal responsibility. We've done a lot on the discretionary side already. That's our operating budget.
Yes.
And we've set caps now for the next 10 years. That's actually, S&P and Moody's and Fitch like that, because there's predictability there. There's still a lack of predictability in entitlements and tax reform. And that's where you're going to see the House focus. The President of the United States finished his address today saying that's where we should be focusing as well. So I think you will see that in September, October, November. With that, let me thank you all for coming and spending some time with me. I got to shoot out right away to the police department.
Thank you.
I'm supposed to be there.
Thank you.